Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Coach Tribe. Another awesome episode today, and we are having over Joanna Ingram. Hello, Joanna. How are you?
Hello, Maria. I'm really well today. Lovely to be here.
Lovely to have you over. For those who don't know Joanna, Joanna helps high achieving and ambitious female coaches clarify their unique brand message and market their brilliance to attract soulmate clients by combining online business strategies with energetic, including pranic healing, breathwork, and law of attraction. Tell me if I missed out on anything.
That is perfect. Exactly right.
What should people know about you, and why should they listen to this episode?
What a great question. Well, if you are building a business, particularly coaching, you're going to need to get your messaging on point. Brand messaging is how we put ourselves out into the world, particularly to get clients. And I believe that all clients are not equal. Soul clients are what lights us up, what creates ease and joy in our business. And getting your brand messaging on point and articulating your unique brilliance is going to make all the difference in who you attract. So if you're looking to attract soul clients, you should definitely listen to this episode.
I love it. And I love the idea of soul clients, right? Those ideal clients that, you find so much pleasure on when you work with them. Now, the issue is when you get started, usually what happens is you have to accept all types of clients, I guess, in the beginning. Is this something that happens often, or you have the power to decide on that?
Well, first of all, it does happen very, very often, but you also do have the power to decide on that. Like, first, I should say that getting started is the most important thing. It's not okay to procrastinate and say, well, if I can't attract the perfect client, then I'm not going to do anything at all. When I first started my business, I came out of nearly 20 years in corporate working for large advertising agencies in London, and asked myself, what kind of business coach am I? And at the time I was like, right, I'm action orientated. I'm about productivity, accountability, CEO mindset and strategy. So I'm going to start there. And I thought, you know what? There are loads of new entrepreneurs and coaches who need that energy because they're the opposite and they're not getting their stuff done. So I put myself out there and I started getting paying clients, which was a whole other story as I moved through my money mindset blocks and self-worth and got to a point where people were paying me. But I did find out maybe about 6 months later, around the same time that I fell into a massive period of burnout, that one of the problems I was having was that I was attracting clients who weren't similar to me. They, in fact, were the opposite, which although I thought that that was a massive advantage at first, it actually turned out to create a de-energizing session. And I was coming off the sessions going, whoa, that took so much out of me. I was over-delivering, over-serving, over-proving, and realized that soul clients, when you come off of a session with those, you feel so energized. You kind of, if you're in the house with anybody else, you run down, you're like, oh my God, I just had the best session. You feel high, you want to go live, you want to do all the things that feel brave and courageous. And when we're building businesses with joy and ease and not efforting, matching ourselves with those clients is a process that even if you haven't achieved it at first, you will soon realize, like me, when you start feeling worn out and moving into burnout, that it is time to make that shift.
I got you, and it feels so nice. And you were talking about that feeling after those calls where you feel like, oh my God, and you feel that adrenaline pumping in, but in a good way. That's how I feel about my podcast episodes with awesome guests like you, just to point that out. Okay, now, how do we get those amazing clients to work with? How do we reach them? How do they find us?
Okay, so a million different ways. I need to say that first of all, because there isn't one way fits all. And I know that there are strategies working for people using DMs on Instagram, and there are strategies using long form content like podcasts and blogs. The list is endless. But my belief is it all starts with your authentic and unique brand messaging. No matter how good your sales strategies are and your marketing techniques, if you haven't nailed your authentic brand messaging, you're going to waste a lot of energy, time, and money in drawing people towards you who will then not convert. One of the biggest symptoms I see from both new and established coaches that they need to address their brand messaging is they're doing things like building their Instagram audience, but not getting conversions to sales into clients from their Instagram audience. Or for more advanced coaches, might be spending money on paid advertising and the ROI just isn't stacking up. And they're trying all the things when really they just need to go back to the basics and the foundations of how they're expressing and articulating their brand brilliance in the market.
I just wanted to take a step back and ask you, what is brand messaging? Just because I feel like, this term has so many definitions these days, or just people perceive it in different ways. And I wanted you to clarify it for us if that's possible.
I'm so glad you asked this, because when I joined the online business industry, I wasn't clear what messaging actually meant. And this is coming from a 20-year veteran in advertising and marketing. I had helped multi-million-pound businesses to generate revenue and create brand positioning and differentiation in the market. And yet this word messaging, when it came to personal brands, mine being the first one I was looking at, kind of had to really think hard about what it meant. And you will find people out there online who define it in very different ways. One of the biggest mistakes that people often make is they define brand messaging as the copy that they write on their website, or how they express themselves in their blog, or showing up in content in general. And I want to be clear that there is absolutely nothing wrong with that being part of messaging. But the biggest mistake you can make is thinking that that is your messaging. You need to take a really big step back. And the messaging starts with you and your unique brilliance. In the Messaging Edge method, which I devised to answer this specific question for my clients, I've split this into 3 clear areas. So you start with alignment. And this is the piece that people often skip. Alignment is 2 things. First of all, it's you and your unique brilliance. And secondly, it's aligning with your perfect avatar. And even in this one area, people often just jump to the avatar. Now, I'm going to ask you this. Have you ever been asked by a coach, or thought about this yourself, to look at your industry and work out where the gaps are, people who aren't being served, who will pay you lots of money for what you're capable of doing? And whilst these are good marketing or business questions in general, what they completely ignore is you in the equation. And this is the piece that I put more emphasis on than any of the others, because your business starts with you. So the biggest question you start is, what is my unique brilliance? And what is it that creates joy and ease for me that's going to mean that when I do identify my avatars, they're just drawn to me magnetically? And that's about attraction marketing. And that's about putting yourself out there with authenticity and sometimes with vulnerability. It's a completely different energy to going after the sale. It's about serving in order to create growth for your business and for others in the form of transformation.
If you're listening to this, you're probably trying to build and scale your online business. Am I right? Then we have just the thing for you, and it's free.
We're building Pensite to enable people like you to set up your online store and monetize your knowledge via courses, one-to-one sessions, group coaching, digital products, Q&As, and bundles. It's purpose-built for you with bonus features such as video recordings, private notes for each client, Zapier integration, calendar sync, analytics, and much, much more to handle your scheduling automatically, accept payments, and help you scale your business.
Check it out at pensight.com. Got it. And if I were to go even more in depth and ask you, can you, Joanna, define brand messaging for a second grading? Just one line.
For a second grader, like a school kid?
Exactly.
Okay. Brand messaging is, in one line, the expression and articulation of your unique brilliance.
Love
and if
that.
you allowed me to add a second line, I'd say who you are, who you serve, and what you do.
Who you are, who you serve, and what you do. And that comes off, I guess, in all of your messages across all channels, right? It's the way you put yourself out there. It's the pictures that you use of yourself, the tone of voice, the copy that you write, the blogs, the videos, the way that you reply to DMs. Is that right?
It is all of those things, Maria. You're absolutely right. But the key to getting them at at the state and place that's really going to serve you is to underpin it with the two areas that I call expression. And those are your brand mission and your brand stories. And too frequently people jump and they're just like, what are my brand colors? What's my brand tone? And, you want to get into Canva and design, which is awesome. But it's no good spending time on the busy work and those little things when the needle moving areas of your real and truthful expression haven't been dealt with first. So mission, the power of your mission is literally the energy you put out into the world. That means everything you do in order to get a sale is natural and authentic and never, ever icky. Because a lot of times people move into this industry and they're selling their personal offers and their heart's gone into it. That's who we are. We're purpose-led entrepreneurs. And so it can feel really awkward when you show up on discovery calls or you put it out there in your content that you are selling something. You've got to express the value of that. And when you dial up your powerful personal mission, it completely transforms that energy. Like for me, it took me a while in my business to realize what my messaging was all about. Like I mentioned earlier, when I started with accountability and productivity, and after I burned out and realized that I'd taken all of the negative culture from the corporate space into my own business, and I was my own worst boss, I was like, right, I need to reevaluate it, and got into a lot more spiritual practices. Like you mentioned, Pranic Healing. I became a breathwork facilitator, a lifelong student of law of attraction, and wanted to express this in my business because it's my passion, and realized that moving into a business of brand messaging and flow and ease was right for me, but also right for my clients. And so as I moved through this process, I realized this is what is my gift to teach. So the mission started coming through me. It was like, right, what exactly is my mission here? And the articulation for me at this point, and I do want to be clear that we evolve all the time. So your mission today might evolve into a different mission in 3 or 6 months' time. But for me, it was that expression of women's individuality in business. It's like we're not made to be cookie cutter coaches or to emulate the leading coach or entrepreneur in our industry. We're made to shine because we're unique. And so many women hide their unique brilliance and are afraid to express it. We come up with this fear of judgment, imposter syndrome, perfectionism, and particularly for high achieving visionary women who are my tribe, we just like hide this brilliance behind some sort of driven power bro marketing exterior oftentimes, or burn out and go in the opposite direction, which was my experience. And we throw off our shoes, we run into the woods, stick an Abraham Hicks podcast in our ears and go, oh, I need to get in alignment. I need to meditate. And I adore being in alignment. Meditation's awesome. But the balance, that divine balance is where the joy and the brilliance really shines.
Got it. And now, what are some things that we should know when we think about brand messaging? If someone is new to this, what are the things that they should consider or start with to get right in the beginning?
Okay, so I mentioned earlier about the first area that I teach is about alignment. And the first area in that is your unique brilliance. Now, this is the place where I would advise everyone to start. Start with yourself. Now, if you're listening and you are a more advanced, established coach, don't think this isn't for you. Because I work with established coaches who are literally up-leveling themselves through their own self-development to such a fast pace that they have to go back and revisit really what their brand messaging, what their unique brilliance is. I did it myself, as I said, like 6 months, a year in. And it's something that I'm realizing we need to do, perhaps depending on the rate of our own personal growth, every single year. But the process is that of brand epics. Now, epics is an anagram, and that stands for experience, pain, interest, character, and skills. Now, these are 5 aspects of your unique brilliance, and each one gives a different clue to how you should be showing up in your business, what your brilliance is, who you should be working with, how you should be working, what you should be teaching. And the process is actually, quite deep. I've had it called business therapy by one client. and an articulation of what's on her heart by another, because it's not for the faint-hearted to really look at yourself introspectively and to realize what you're supposed to be doing, because it can be quite confronting. Sometimes we've gone off in the wrong direction, and we have to take that stock and challenge ourselves to show up with an authenticity and visibly that we might not feel comfortable doing. So I'm going to share a couple of them with you today. So a couple of the ones that I think have made big gains for people doing this independently. So you can go out and just move this forward. So the first one I want to talk about is experience. And experience, as it suggests, is how you've developed experience through the workplace or in your personal life. And people make two mistakes here. You either underdo it or overdo it. Underdoing experience is where you discount something that's actually really relevant to your business. A great example of that is being a mum. Quite frequently, I'll speak to clients and I'll ask them about their experience, and they completely ignore all of the great skills and experience that they've created by being a mum. And very frequently, it's super relevant. It unlocks so much in how they relate to their soul clients and express themselves online. But equally, you can overdo experience. And I felt guilty of this myself. For women often coming out of corporate, and no, this is true for men as well, right? You can come out of corporate or out of your full-time 9-to-5 job, and you think, these are the skills that I've developed. This is what I'm going to teach. And you transpose what you did before, bang, into your new business. The problem with that, apart from it being very one-dimensional, is that oftentimes you lack joy in it. And of course, the clients you're attracting are going to be very similar to the people you used to work with in the job that, let's be honest, you left for a reason. So this gives you the opportunity, when you really explore a number of prompts around experience, to say, am I not really getting the balance right about who I used to be and who I now am in my business? So that's a really strong starting point. I think, I'm a little bit spoiled thinking about which one I would really like to share today, because otherwise we would be here all day. But I want people to implement. So here's the second one. I'm going to go for the biggie. I'm going to go for pain. Pain is about your struggles and about your challenges that you faced in your life to date. But I do want to be clear, we're not talking about your gaping wounds. We're talking about your scars, your hard-won battle scars that you have found a way of overcoming and are ready to authentically and vulnerably share this with people online and with people in your world in order that they can learn from it and make a transformation. I know for me, it was a really hard thing to, at first, overcome fear of judgment and start to share some of the reality of the struggles that I've had in my life, the burnout, the not succeeding in that first year of business. I put so much value on being high achieving and being a success that I put so much pressure on myself that's what led to that burnout, and has actually opened me up to living my life and business with joy. So I'm now a conduit for that message. And I'm able to talk really authentically because I'm no longer afraid to say I didn't hit my goals and I messed it all up and, felt terrible and was crying on the kitchen floor to my husband going, why am I doing this to myself? Should I just go back and get a job? And, worked so many hours. And the whole point of it was to spend more time with my 3 daughters. And I'd trapped myself in a business that was the antithesis to what my vision actually was. And even went out talking about building a personal business that thrived and was full of joy, knowing that my heart was breaking. I was like, right, this isn't integrity. This is not how I want to show up in my business, and transformed my expression, my brand message around this. So going back to pain, what is it that you have experienced that currently you're not bringing into your business, that in your heart you're meant to share to help your ideal clients create transformation? And if you know the answer to that question, but you're not sharing it yet, there's some work to do on having the confidence to be yourself as an expression for your business. And for me, what used to happen is I used to get a real constriction in my throat. It was like every time I wanted to say something but couldn't, I would feel this tightness. And I learned through my work with Pranic Healing about the chakras, particularly the throat chakra. And when I started doing activations to open my throat chakra and, wearing turquoise, which I'm wearing now, but setting an intention to be more authentic and open in service of my clients and my truth, I was able to step through that barrier. And for me now, that made such a big difference. I shared activations to help my clients make that transformation when they are stuck sharing their truth. So we should never underestimate the power of blending energetics with business strategy, because really when we get stuck, we have to find ways of moving through that and leaning into ease and flow. And for me, that has really been a game changer.
I absolutely love that, and I couldn't agree more on this also energetics perspective, and really like bringing that authentic energy in what you're doing. Now, you mentioned about bringing this pain or scars into your messaging. Now, obviously that is not easy, but I wanted to ask, why do you think that people find it hard to communicate or to be vulnerable in their messaging?
These days, being authentic on social media is a step beyond the perfection that is painted by so many in this space. To show up and say, I'm not the finished article. I may only be a step or two ahead of you in the areas of which I'm teaching. And I may be behind you in some other areas. I'm working with coaches who are acing it in the areas of health and wellness and finance and name it. They're doing phenomenal work, and I show up in my power, being the expert at the very small specialist thing that I do exceedingly well. And I work with coaches that earn a lot more than me, and that took a bit of integrating. It was like, who am I to help you reach your six-figure, multiple six-figure, seven-figure level of impact and income when I've just started? And you know what, if you're in that space, and it's as true for many of my clients feel the same, we have to just go back to the reality of us being good enough. It's all about self-worth. And so frequently we have to revisit the fact that you are good enough just as you are. You have what it takes to succeed. You already know that you are meant to do more. And that's why, for me, my work is so important, because it unlocks the confidence and clarity in your unique brilliance that allows you to step over that fear of judgment and take that courageous step, whether that's just showing up on a live or being a guest on a podcast or putting yourself forward and saying, you should work with me. Knowing that you can create transformation and change is the power behind that. And for me, it's unlocked with brand messaging. And I found that that's been true of so many of my clients. I believe in creating our own reality. So we can choose to be someone that feels that, or we can step into our future self reality now and say, I choose to share this authentically and boldly, and I choose to get the results for my clients that will be created when I step up to that next level self.
So the way to overcome this fear or of being vulnerable in your messaging is actually to step into the version of your future self that you want to become. Is this right? Is it like a decision? Is this what makes the difference?
You said that perfectly. Exactly.
And how do we make a decision, if I can follow up?
Well, I can tell you how I made this decision. So there was a point, actually, it was some point last year where I got myself into a bit of a negative cycle. I was feeling not good enough. I was feeling like I wasn't getting the sales that I was hoping for. I wasn't creating an offer that I felt really aligned with. I was transitioning between those. And I had the choice to continue feeling like that and create the same reality and the same results, or to literally draw a line under it. And I woke up one morning. I was working with a fantastic spiritual coach at the time. So I want to say that there is support out there. I worked with a spiritual coach. I help my own clients with this now. And it doesn't mean that you can't do it on your own, but it is very empowering to have somebody reflect this back at you. But I'm going to tell you what I literally did. I wrote a manifesto. I think there were, 3 or 4 points on it of things I wasn't going to tolerate anymore. And I was like, at the time, I was like, I'm not going to work with unenergizing clients, even if it means turning down a sale. I'm going to empower my boundaries to say no if they're not a soul client, because I'm no longer available to work with people who aren't aligned with the work that I do. That was pretty bold. I was like, ooh, this is scary stuff, particularly when you're looking at your income and you're like, am I at the level I want to be? And secondly, I decided that I was going to show up in the power of my mission, even if the things that I was doing felt uncomfortable. Now, for somebody that had been in flow and alignment for many months, rebuilding my nervous system after this burnout time, this was quite scary for me. I was like, right, so I'm telling myself to do the difficult thing, even if I don't really want to, and it feels out of alignment, and I'd much rather chill and just do something that feels good. And how I dialed that in was to realize that your alignment is actually in your big mission, what you're meant to be doing in the world. That is what you're aligning with. And if you're fully aligned with the impact that you're going to make in the world and your mission, sometimes the steps that it will take to get there might feel a little uncomfortable, but it doesn't mean they're not aligned. It just means you're going to feel amazing once you've done it. You're going to feel like, $1 million. And feeling $1 million, guess what, is what helps you create that massive step change in income. And you're not going to get there by just feeling, You're going to get there by feeling, whoa, by feeling like I did that. And for me, that was just starting to be really, really straight up, real, authentic, sharing my message and not worrying whether people didn't like what I said. And coming out of corporate, when I show up and I talk about the universe and energy, I just thought people are going to think that I'm crazy with all this stuff. But that might have been true of some, and that's okay, because it's more true that people who I'm meant to work with will lean toward me. And that's, a key message that I really want people to understand, which is being yourself is the best thing you can do for your business. And if that means being uncomfortable and showing up authentically and feeling icky, you're going to feel amazing once you've taken that brave step. And it could be really small. One of my first brave steps was on LinkedIn, and I hadn't changed my LinkedIn profile since I'd left my corporate job. And that job, for a big advertising agency in the UK in London, I was made redundant, laid off at the very beginning of the pandemic. And whilst I was fully excited about the universe giving me the kick that I knew I needed to start my own business and do what I was really meant to do, I did feel all the feels. I felt embarrassed. I felt resentful. I felt sad. And I just didn't want to change my LinkedIn profile to self-employed business coach, which is what I was at the time. And 4 months later, I still hadn't changed it, even though I had paying clients in my business. And I remember sitting on a call with my pod, and everyone should have an accountability pod of amazing humans that hold you to your highest self. And they said, right, enough's enough. We're not even going to leave this call till you've got on LinkedIn and changed your profile now. And I literally just changed it. And the minute I took that action, it was like the momentum took place. I immediately went onto Facebook and I created this long post just saying, listen, this is how I've been. This is what happened. This is how I felt. This is what I'm doing now. Feeling super vulnerable, just sharing. And I don't think I've had many posts that got so much support. It was an incredible outpouring of people championing me and giving me little high fives. And I have to be honest with you, as amazing as that sounds, the bigger win was being the person that took the brave action. Even if nobody had cheered me on, it was such a win to just be someone that's going to take the steps, even if they feel uncomfortable, to make massive change in your own life and those lives of your clients or future clients.
Inspiring. So thank you so much for sharing. It made me wonder, we all have our own time and our own journey. It took you 4 months to be able to make that change on LinkedIn. And I'm wondering, where's the balance between allowing yourself to get to the level where you want to get and pushing yourself to get there faster?
Okay, I love this question. I'm going to refer to feelings here. Now, I am a big fan of Abraham Hicks, and I'm a student of law of attraction. And one of the things that I always go to when it comes to deciding when the time is right is to lean into your own intuition. Now, if what you're doing is leading you to feel bad, it's time to make a change. Now, I'm going to illustrate that using your example. Let's say you are not changing your LinkedIn profile or your equivalent of that. You're not taking the brave step that you know it's sitting there, right? You just know it needs to be done. Energetically, this is going to be a real weight on you. And at first, you're going to be like, I feel better not doing it. I just feel much easier if I don't have to face it. There's going to come a time where it's preying on your mind and it's energetically leaching from you. And you're not showing up every day feeling energized. You're showing up feeling heavy. It is time to make that change. Now, if you are feeling that after 3 days of launching your new business, do it today. If it's taken you 6 months, a year before that weight is on you, then so be it. But now is the time to make that change. And it's also true in the reverse. If you have kind of really happy feelings, then you don't need to go off and do something else. If you're feeling great, then it's probably because you're doing some great actions elsewhere. And this thing that's hovering in the background that you really don't care less about isn't the thing for your business, because your intuition, when your intuition speaks to you, it speaks to you in the language of emotion. And if it's a negative emotion, it needs some intuitive action. If it's a positive emotion, you're doing great and you carry on.
I love that. And I hope that each and every one of us can really take that in and, start listening to our intuition more. Now, again, going one step backwards when it comes to brand messaging. Many of our listeners today, they have been into coaching business for a while now, years, if not even more. And I want to ask you, how do we know we have a problem when it comes to messaging? How do we know there's something to improve? There's always something to improve, but how do we know there's a problem with our messaging?
Okay, so tangible ways that you know, and similar to what I mentioned earlier, will be things like creating audience growth but not getting conversions, working with clients who are not energizing. You know that they're not your ideal clients, spending money on ads and not getting a return. But it's also an intangible thing that if you're heart-led and attuned, you will know that you just know you're not feeling aligned with your business anymore. A good example, Caroline, a client of mine who is an executive career coach, when we started working together, she was already running a very successful 6-figure business, an amazing group program where she's helping people, women particularly, progress in their careers. Doing a great job, really perfect in the sense that she's highly qualified for this. But when we started working together and went through the brand epics process I mentioned, we realized that she was really holding back and had an issue that meant she wasn't stepping into her full expression and power. For her, this was that she'd moved through a number of careers and jobs while she was in corporate. And she was comparing herself to women who'd stayed in one company for a very long time on one career trajectory. And completely bizarrely to anybody else, but not at all for her, Caroline felt that she wasn't able to coach them because she wasn't good enough. Obviously, like anyone listening is like, what are you talking about? Why would you feel this way? But we all have this stuff going on where we feel less than for a rather irrational reason that's attached to the stories we've created in our lives. But through the brand epics process, it became clear that Caroline was and is about freedom to have a career that lights you up in a way that's personal to you. And that's exactly how she'd been living. Her frequent career moves were in the service of creating different types and levels of freedom in her life. And once we dialed in her brand stories around that, I realized that her mission was about that. Not only did she overcome that feeling of not being good enough, but it dialed in almost instantly her vision of her next 6-figure offer. She was like, oh my God, I know exactly what I need to create. One of the things that she said afterwards was that the energy in her business for the last 6 months had been really suppressed because she just couldn't feel like moving forward. And when this was unlocked, all the energy came back.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of power in our journey. It's just a matter of the stories that we tell ourselves. So the way we perceive the reason behind us taking specific actions. But if we are to invest that time and energy to really understand ourselves, then that by itself can make such a huge difference, because automatically that will be like a magnet that will speak by itself. Those stories, those reasoning, those motivation, it can be our biggest strength. And if we're able to communicate that in the proper way, that will make the difference, basically.
Oh, absolutely right. I couldn't agree more. It's the reality is that alignment is a lifelong process. And as experienced coaches, we get to a point where things shift for us and we have new interests and new passions, new experiences. It's really similar to the way that I've recently dialed in breathwork for business into my group program. And that came from experiencing it and then being trained to facilitate it and knowing that this is an extra thing that's going to help people align their energy. So I shifted my offer and integrated a new part of me.
I love that. Now, I know we touched on different aspects of my next question. I always like to ask a question again, almost, just so we can get that specific answer or more summarized version of everything we discussed about. So my question for you is, how can you create powerful and unique brand messaging?
Okay. In order to create unique and powerful brand messaging, you have to start with you. You have to unlock your unique brilliance to really understand how to engage with your soul clients. You need to express your mission powerfully and confidently and understand the brand stories that are the foundation of why you do what you do and how you help others make incredible transformations.
See, I'm always happy I ask these questions again, almost, because after, let's say, half an hour of a conversation, will you set some pillars, the basics. We talk about so many different aspects. Suddenly the same things, has so much power and meaning and understanding, because now we have all of the other things in place. So thank you so much. Now, this message was so much powerful for me. It made so much more sense. And I think the last question that I would like to ask is, we hear so much lately about content. How can we create content to attract those right soul ideal clients?
Wow. Yeah. Creating content is one of the pieces as coaches, entrepreneurs that a lot of people struggle with. When we talk about messaging brilliance, it's really about creating content that's highly resonant with your soul clients. And that comes from all the goodness that we talked about today. Once you understand your brand stories and you've got a powerful mission and you understand your unique place within your niche and your industry, you just got to get out there and keep doing it. Now, you can work with a copywriter and you can learn great skills, but really your full expression in your energetic alignment with your content and the messaging behind it is always going to be in the background of anything else you do. Find a way of creating content that is energetically aligned with how you like to show up. In my brand ethics process, the one of skills I mentioned is about an inquiry into what you're just naturally good at. And I had completely forgotten that in corporate, I was really good at presenting. I would always be at the front in the boardroom with my PowerPoint presentation. It was where I excelled. And I realized for a really long time in my business, I wasn't doing anything like that. And that's when I sat and I said, you know what? I love just showing up and talking, podcasts and all the things I mentioned. So why are you not doing it, Joanna? So I launched my own podcast and I put myself out there in new ways that I could do with ease, and found that when I put my energy out there in that way, people would radiate towards me, my tribe. And they'd say, when you said that about burning out, working corporate and moving into spirituality, really called to me. I really enjoy your podcast, or whatever it might look like. So in summary, if you want to get good at content, Create content that you love to create and share your message in places where the energy is infectious and magnetic. If you start there, you're not going to go wrong. And anything else you do, you can just build on that with strategies and techniques. And there's so much education out there. And just enjoy that expression.
I couldn't agree more. And this is actually so empowering. We understood from this episode that we need to do the work to figure out, the mission that we have, the purpose, the stories that we tell ourselves. We need to take that time to do that. But how do we specifically do it? Is there a shortcut? Do we just do journaling? Do we go in a meditative state? Do we hire a coach? How do we get those answers?
I love this question. I went on my own journey to answer this question after I got into burnout, and I was like, right, there's got to be a better way. And one of the unique challenges, or not that unique, because you or others might resonate with this, was that as a sort of type A driven intellectual woman, I was like, this is really hard. They're asking me to stop thinking and get out of my head. And I spend my whole time in my head, overthinking, yes, perfectionism, yes, imposting, all of this. So I had to adapt a lot of the lessons and things that were out there. And I did start with journaling and meditation. And these are phenomenal tools, but they can seem quite overwhelming at first. They feel like another job, another task. So I'd love to share the two things that help me most. First of all, meditation. What helps me is keeping it short. It's like there's some really long guided meditations out there, and I love listening to them and building shopping lists in my head and creating an email that I need to write later. And if that's where you're going with this, you're going to get frustrated and you're going to lose interest really fast. So keep it short. For me, doing sometimes 5 minutes of just listening to, an ambient buzzing sound and allowing my breath to flow is enough. And meditation does allow your quiet voice of intuition, your higher self, to talk through you. And if you ever want to access intuition and allow yourself to be guided, you have to quieten your mind. But start small and be gentle with yourself. And if your mind wanders, just bring it back. Wanders, bring it back. And secondly, when it comes to journaling, you might be someone that loves morning pages and will write 3 pages in flow. And that's awesome. But if you're not there yet, I like to ask a very simple question for my journaling. And it's this: what is going right for me right now? And what I love about this is it brings in elements of gratitude and appreciation, which is really important to, give us that boost to feel great about our day. And if you into the law of attraction, attract more great things into our lives. And asking ourselves, what's going right for me right now, really changes our vibration and our frequency. And we don't have to stretch ourselves into everything that's going right or wrong in our lives, but just something for now. And I went through a period where I would write, the sun is shining on my face and my morning coffee tastes great. The sheets this morning were soft and I get to plan my day. I don't have to show up to a job I didn't align with anymore. I was like, you know what? That's a pretty good day. So it can lead into, I had a great discovery call with a client. And one of the things that I would really recommend as well is to lean into being rather than having. Don't base your gratitude on only the results that you're seeing, because if you're not seeing the results, you're going to fall into that not feeling good enough, not feeling like you're going to get there. Lean into the being. And a good example is what we talked about earlier, Maria, when we talked about I'm being the person that shows up on social media authentically. I'm being the person that took the brave action to change my LinkedIn profile. I'm pretty good right now, and the results will follow.
I find myself more and more after this podcast episodes just wanting to go back in my own time and re-listen to this, because it's so impactful for me as well. Joanna, this has been absolutely awesome. So much to learn from you and so much good energy that we just absorbed. So thank you so much for putting that out there for us. Now I would like to ask you, where can people find you? Why should people reach out to you? Do you have any program going on at this moment? Tell us more about that.
If you want to connect, come and find me on Instagram. I'm called iamjo.ingram. If you DM me, I'll give you a link for my free messaging checklist for coaches. Also, you can hear me on my podcast, Goals with Soul, and I share loads of goodness about my journey with the law of attraction and spirituality, as well as tips for unique brand messaging. Right now, I work with coaches in my group program, Time to Rise, where we start with unique and authentic brand messaging and incubate all of the steps that coaches in their first 2 years have to do to create that magnetism with our soul clients and create a thriving business with ease. And this month, I'm also working with some coaches one-to-one using my Messaging Edge program. So if you liked what you heard about brand epics, I lead with that in all the work I do. And you can come find me on Instagram and ask me more about it. And I'd love to tell you.
And for everyone else, Joanna also has a Penside page, so you can find her on her Penside profile where you can find all her socials. You can reach out to her, or why not just directly book that program with her and get started. Now, Joanna, I have a surprise for you. It's my new surprise for all of my guests this series.
Ooh.
I will ask a fire 5 fast questions your way. Quick answers, whatever comes first to your mind. Are you in?
I'm just aligning. Right, it's going to flow. Whatever you want, go for it.
Perfect. Question number 1. If anything, what would you change if you were to start your journey again?
I would be me right away.
Love that. That is really to the point. Question number 2. What's one belief that you've changed recently?
I'm not good enough.
Question number 3. Who are you most grateful for?
Oh, gosh. Ooh. Oh, my gosh. I don't know who was that guy? Was it Kanye? Who was like, I'm going to thank me, right? Was it Kanye? And I'm like, God, can I say that? That's terrible. Because I'm like, I'm so grateful for my beautiful children and my husband. I'm so grateful for the coaches and my clients. But at the end of the day, if I'm not going to show up and live my best life, then why bother? It's like I've been given this gift, this 3D experience, and I don't only get one life, I get loads, but I'm not going to waste this one. And I'm just going to be grateful for showing up and experiencing the highs and the lows. And yeah, I don't know if that's a terrible answer, but it's the truth, right?
I think it's an incredible answer. I absolutely love this answer. Question number 4. One book everyone should read.
Okay. Thank and Grow Rich by Pam Grout.
Say it again.
Thank and Grow Rich. It's like a riff on Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, which is also awesome. But right now I'm reading Thank and Grow Rich, and I love her simplistic approach to gratitude. And right now, if whatever it is you're doing or trying to achieve, get into that book because it's going to make a shift change.
Love that. And question number 5. One message on a billboard for most people to see. What would you write?
You are uniquely brilliant, and it is your time to shine.
Shine bright like a diamond.
Nice. Yes. Just do it for goodness sake. That would do it for goodness sake. Although that's just a little bit bro, but it's we hide our light, and we are destined to build great businesses, to create amazing transformations, to live our lives in joy and ease. And that's why I named my group program Time to Rise, because that's what I felt. I was just like, it's my time. Stop playing small. Stop just hiding my light. Be me. Take a chance and just enjoy the ride. So yeah, if there's space on the billboard, that's what I'd put.
Absolutely love it. Joanna, it has been such a huge pleasure to have you with us today. I am so happy with this episode. There's so much to learn, so much value that you put out there. So I want to thank you so much. I also want to thank all of our listeners for sticking till the end, and to tell them to tune in to our next episode.
This has been absolutely brilliant. Got to talk about all my favorite subjects. So thank you for your amazing questions, Maria.
My pleasure. Well, I wish everyone a good day and see you for the next episode. Bye-bye.
Hope you enjoyed this episode.
we'll be releasing every Wednesday. So make sure to
subscribe
and rate us 5 stars where you're listening to this show to give others a chance to discover it too.